Matthew Shapiro is an attorney practicing in Daytona Beach, Florida. Among his other practice areas, Matthew provides comprehensive estate planning, including trusts. I sat down with Matthew the other day to discuss some of the advantages of creating a trust, which includes stewardship of assets for heirs and privacy. Let's go to our interview with Matthew for more details.
I think it's a great topic. If we talk about estate planning 101, like a college intro class,
right.
You have your wills and you have your basic healthcare surrogates. And the trust is kind of like level 2. It's a little bit more advanced planning technique that really gives people the flexibility to enact plans that meet their needs. And I guess the basic idea, to boil it down to the very top of, I'll say the iceberg,
right.
With trust would be the idea that you are essentially giving your property to someone during your lifetime, and that's a trustee. And that person is oftentimes you. During your lifetime, you control and do with this property as you want. But upon your passing, another person, your successor trustee, is going to take it over and follow your wishes. And with other types of planning, David, what you're really doing is just going from point A to point B.
Okay.
Let's pick an even number. I have $100,000. I'm giving $100,000 to my daughter, and it's hers to do with as she pleases. Whereas with a trust, you're getting to give instructions over how that money is going to be distributed, when it's going to be distributed, what it can be used for. And, you know, I'd tell people, I'd caution them, a lot of people think, well, I don't know if I want that. I don't want to be ruling from the grave. This idea of if she marries someone I don't like, then the money's going to go somewhere else. That's not what a trust is about. A trust is really about knowing what the needs are of the people you may be leaving it to and making sure that you're putting them in the best position they can be in moving forward.
That's very good. Well, so there's a lot there to unpack. So the first thing is you really, and you know, for a lot of people, they go, you know what, Matthew, that doesn't sound so bad to control from the grave. I know my kids. I don't want them to get, in fact, most people I talk to in the financial planning work I do, every week I have somebody say, you know what, I don't really want them to get all this money at once. I want it to be held. I love the idea of it being dispersed over time. I don't want it to mess up their life. People are concerned about divorce with the rate of divorce in our country. They're also concerned about creditors getting to the money. So there's a lot of things that the trust that it can do to help with those situations. So that's not a bad thing at all to be able to set these things in motion and have a little bit of control from the grave. It's not like you're trying to control people's lives, but you are helping them with these resources and setting boundaries.
And that's a perfect way of putting the point I was trying to make with it, is that don't view that as a bad thing.
Yeah,
it's not a bad thing to want to have control over the assets even if you're not there, because oftentimes you know your family best. You know your heirs better than anyone else, and you don't want to create a bad situation for them.
That's good. Well, we've all seen the television programs where, you know, there's this some sort of murder mystery or some plot, and there's the reading of the will, and there's, you know, all this stuff. One of the things that people ask me is, well, does the person even need to know that they're named as a beneficiary? Because I don't want them necessarily to know that those assets are out there. How much privacy, I guess, do you get? Because I know with probate, it's more of an open process. Talk about some of the privacy you get by doing a trust.
Sure, great question. There's actually two prongs to that. So the first idea we talked about in a previous show, you know, wills and probate. When you go through probate and you have a will, it's recorded in the public records upon your passing. So if you want to leave money to someone other than spouse or children, or you want to leave it to a charity and you don't want people knowing what you're doing, they're going to know what you're doing if they care to, with a will.
With a will, okay.
With a trust, though, what you can do, there's nothing to record. There's nothing in the public records that will actually disclose the terms. So if you want, we have clients all the time where they say, I don't want neighbors, or especially people who belong to a very tight-knit sub-area of the community, they don't want others knowing what they had or where it's going, and a trust will protect that. So just on a global level, there's much more privacy. Now, as far as with the actual beneficiaries, at the time you make the trust, you don't need to tell anyone that they're a named beneficiary in that instrument, because there are always exceptions. We may get into them today. For the most part, trusts can be revised and revoked over time, so they don't have what's called a secured or a vested interest until you actually pass away. So if I wanted to leave money to a child and I didn't want them saying, well, the gravy train's here, I don't need to work anymore, I don't need to tell them that. But when the trust is finalized and becomes irrevocable, at that point in time, the trustee does have a duty to notify anyone that has rights under it and to say, you've been named. If you want a copy of the trust, you can have a copy. Here's how much money's in there. And that's for everyone's protection, that beneficiaries should know that they're entitled to a certain
Right.
amount of assets to make sure that the trustee's doing their job.